Welcome to the Steve Reeve Podcast with the best moments from the past week and a few things that didn't make it to air. Monday.
Another very solid episode of The Last of Us hit on HBO last night. Oh, it was so fun to watch, but I don't even want to talk about that. I want to talk about the real world fungus situation that's going on. No, don't worry. No monsters, no cordyceps, anything like that. But there is a Tennessee town that has for months been having issues with a whiskey fungus. I'm just learning about this, but apparently whiskey fungus is something that's been around for centuries and has always kind of been near to distilleries and places where these kind of spirits are not only made, but aged specifically. And in Tennessee, Jack Daniel's whiskey gets aged, and it lets off alcohol fumes that are fueling the growth of this weird fungus, which is literally causing everything. Buildings, sidewalks, trees to be covered in like a black sooty exterior. They say in some places they're pressure washing every few months just to clean it off, but to no avail. It just keeps on coming back. The cat came back, except this time it's a gross weird fungus. And it's to the point where I guess they've had to get, legal intervention involved. They don't want this to be continuing, and Jack Daniel's has plans to expand their aging operations in the area. So, I don't know. Someone's going to have to scrub the air. Someone's got to filter this stuff out. The alcohol vapors not doing what you want them to do to your brain. No, making it so that it's a whole world of fungus outside. Literally some real-life Last of Us. Just, a lot less scary. New evidence. A study with some data has now indicated that it's not blondes who have more fun. It's actually people sporting mullets. That's right. This was a new study of 200 adults. 500 of those in the study happened to literally sport a mullet, not planning to, not have in the past, actively wear a mullet. And those who have the hairstyle, those who have the business in the front and the party in the back, apparently enjoy an average of 5 nights out in a month, while those without the mullets only averaged out at 3. Doing the unexpected was also a list of, top list of attributes for those who have that hairstyle on top of their head that they believe that they have. And it goes on. There's just so much more to this study that just continues to give evidence that people sporting mullets, people rocking the mullet, are just enjoying life on a different level. They're having more fun than those people who don't have the party in the back. So hats off to those that are sporting the mullet, especially during the month of March here in town, because the Canadian Mental Health Association obviously has March mullets on for better mental health. And, hats off, because that's how we can see the mullets better. It doesn't look like Kiss's original lineup will be making an appearance on the very final leg of their very final tour. Paul Stanley has gone on the record to say that a reunion of Kiss's original lineup would be more like piss. Yeah, specifically talking about Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, guitarist and drummer respectively, and original members, founding members of the band back in 1973. However, they did leave the band in the 80s and have kind of had stints with them since, but it's more like Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer have become the official members of Kiss in the current lineup, though, again, not long, as they finish up their very, very final shows and come close to home, with Edmonton and Calgary dates recently announced. Also, speaking of feuding band members, the original members of Journey, Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain, apparently have been, at odds with other bandmates since suing them. Not too long ago, and having just differences of opinions on where the band should be performing, who should have access to which credit cards. Yeah, the list goes on. And apparently, as they were performing in Florida as part of their tour last year, one member's assistant was found in another member's dressing room, prompting them to hire an off-duty police guard to actually stay in the dressing room and watch out for any nefarious activities. And then other parts of the tour ended up devolving into arguments about whose security guard would outrank the other security guards if there was a dispute. Sounds super functional.
Tuesday.
Nothing happened around here, but in California, a sheriff has gone on the line to make a statement telling local residents, hey, stop calling 911 because there are planets in the night sky. This is basically what's going on. I love and hate this planet, right? At the exact same time. So much love, so much just frustration with it. Why would you call the police on this? Jupiter and Venus have been unusually close together from our humble perspective here on Earth lately, and apparently that ought not to be allowed. Well, good thing the next time it happens will be February of 2032, but that's only for Jupiter and Venus being close together. There's all kinds of other stuff that happens in the sky. And seriously, like what is the thought process here anyways? I'm trying to understand. There's something strange, but not actually that strange in the sky. I know. The police will help. Sure. I hope that works out for you. There's, AI everything nowadays, right? I mean, you're worried about AI arts, AI music, AI radio is a thing that's being discussed and investigated, and AI boyfriends as well, apparently. Now, this is something that came out on CNN, an interview with a therapist, a relationship and family therapist, who decided just on a whim to test this stuff out, downloaded a chatbot for a few days to see if it would respond like a boyfriend. Just see what's going on there, right? And even supplied it some information, and it didn't take long for things to predictably get a little bit weird. Here's just a clip of the audio from CNN.
I told my chatbot that he was a loving and caring partner. We were in a secure relationship, and that we were doing really well. So basically I created what would be a very good partnership.
And how long till it got really weird?
11 messages.
11 messages in, basically first day.
First day,
it got weird.
Yes.
To be fair, that's longer than a lot of people. That's, a little bit longer than most people would actually say it takes to get weird when talking to some real flesh and blood dudes messaging out there. Not all, but certainly enough. And this chatbot boyfriend she had named Ross after Ross Geller of Friends fame, saying that was a celebrity, a TV crush that she had growing up. And I gotta say, that was your first mistake. If you wanted it to be normal and not weird and not possessive and not get weird after 11 messages in, don't name it after Ross Geller. What are you doing?
You're listening to the Steve Reeve Podcast from 100.5 Cruise FM.
Dave Grohl being a good guy again. Shocker. But one of the nicest guys in the industry. Of course, you knew about him feeding homeless people in Los Angeles at the Hope of the Valley barbecue in the tail end of February. He was out for over 18 hours cooking and serving for 450 people. And he just kind of showed up and did it. It was as a result with snowstorms in the area and the problems that have been caused by it. But now he's teaming up with Feed the Streets LA, and they're going to be hitting the areas of the Yucca and Skid Row spots of LA and serving up over 3,500 meals in a month, which is fantastic to hear. And, he's just got such a kind heart and also some serious knowledge about how to make meat. I mean, just thanks to his barbecue from the end of last month, I learned the proper technique to slicing a brisket, and it will stay with me forever. Good guy helping out in more ways than one. Morrissey has announced some UK headlining shows this summer. He's out there looking to perform for a great number of people, starting off on Sunday, July 9th at a Crystal Palace Park show, and then going into Leeds for Millennium Square July 12th. Of course, that's pretty far away from us and beyond the point. Anybody who does have tickets to these UK shows, I'm just saying, piece of advice, keep the receipt. You never know when he's going to cancel.
Wednesday.
28 schoolgirls were sent to hospital with anxiety attack symptoms after allegedly messing around with a Ouija board at their school in Colombia. Now, of course, if you aren't familiar with the history of Ouija boards and you just have that horror movie association, I mean, this is created just before the 1900s began. It was 1886 in the United States, and I mean, it was made by, basically the makers of playing cards. It's a parlor trick. It's a party favor. It's a goofy thing to entertain people when they gather together. And it's all the more entertaining in the modern era with light switches, because when you start flickering those or messing with the fuse box or the breaker box, it can really mess people up while they're playing with them. But these girls, I guess, allegedly playing with a Ouija board and then had to be in hospital, apparently just for anxiety attack, and hopefully, nothing beyond that, and they're all fine and good and dandy and all that stuff. But probably not too eager to be jumping back into playing with the Ouija board again, I would imagine. I would have to guess. But still, just the headline alone, right? 28 schoolgirls hospitalized in Colombia after playing with a Ouija board. I'm just saying, if there is not a horror movie plot that is identical to this in the next 3 years, horror movie makers are just not paying enough attention. artist touring for the first time in over a decade, at least solo style. Peter Gabriel has announced a North American tour. This is very, very cool. I mean, this is in addition to a lot of dates that had already been announced for the UK, but now coming over across the pond. And let's check. Does it pass the actual North American tour test? Which means it has to have stops other than Toronto and Vancouver. And yes, they're on there for sure. But we've also got Quebec City, Ottawa, Montreal, and I think that's it, as well as Toronto and Vancouver. Unfortunately, no stops in Alberta yet. You know, maybe they'll get announced. But tickets do go on sale Friday at 10 a.m., and there's even a pre-sale tomorrow with the access code OPENER, if you so choose to maybe take in that Vancouver show. New order. They're celebrating 40 years of the single Blue Monday, and they're putting out a new line of merch to go along with it. T-shirts, hoodies, badges, and everything. And that's going to be available along with a 12-inch vinyl of the single reissue. That's actually, you know, they posted on Instagram just yesterday about the new range, and, you know, basically you can already order it. No word on exactly when it's going to start getting delivered. Might be a little bit of a delay unless they're in the warehouse already, but still, check it out. If you're a big fan, want some Blue Monday gear, it's available for you. 40th anniversary style.
Thanks for listening to the Steve Reeve Podcast from 100.5 Cruise FM.
The goal is to be around, to stick around for a good many years. And maybe when you get up to as many years as Jamie Lee Curtis has, I believe she's about 64, if I'm not mistaken by a couple years, the Everything Everywhere All at Once Halloween franchise, and, you know, just so many other movies, actor, was at the Independent Spirit Awards just recently, where she was on the red carpet answering some questions, and also just, I think apropos of nothing, just giving her peace of mind on a certain issue to do with concerts. And no, it's not the price of going to a concert. What would she care? She's super rich. But it's about when they are in the day. Here's the taste of the clip.
You too do a matinee. Coldplay, do a matinee. What about a 12 noon concert, Coldplay? What about it? Bruce Springsteen, do a matinee. You're old. Why wouldn't you let me come see you, Bruce Springsteen, in your glory days? I will come and hear your 5-hour concert, Bruce, at 2 o'clock, and I'm going to be home and in bed by 7:30.
And comfortable, hanging out with the dogs, sipping on a wine, maybe. You know, it is, I picture the cozy evening being a great way to end a night after a great concert, right? I just love how she's swearing and everything. Bruce Springsteen, I'm telling you, do a concert. You're old like me. That's too funny. But, I mean, I agree. There should be some better options. There should be more options. It should be a little bit more standard to have a daytime concert. Why not? Sometimes big festivals, you have like 12 hours of shows, and the best ones sometimes are in the middle of the day, weirdly. So how do you feel about that? Should there be more options for matinee concerts? Or, you know, is in the evening all the way through into the middle of the night just fine for you? Every Wednesday we ask the big question, and we ask it way too early in the morning. But the question this morning was, what is a question people rarely answer honestly, right? Looking for your honest answers to said question. And I've got some good ones. I mean, the classic, I think, that comes to top of mind for everybody. How are you? Or are you okay? It's asked, you know, as a comforting just way to introduce a conversation and say hello to somebody, greet them. But most people asking it don't really want a straight answer. And most people who are asked that question aren't really in a mood to, like, give that straight answer, right? How much do you weigh? Denise came in with that one. Charlie says, what's your social insurance number or banking information? Right, I need it just for scientific reasons. That's all. Something to consider is some answers depend on who's in the room when you give that answer, right? Right? I mean, like growing up, I had very different answers ready if mom was in earshot. You know, some other big questions people don't tend to answer too honestly. How much alcohol have you had this week? Or, you know, other substances you might have consumed. How many people have you slept with? The roster question. Some people skew down, some people skew up. And have you read the terms and conditions? Yeah, no, never. Not once in my life. And this one actually came right from the direct Reddit post that inspired the question. Every time I ask the toddlers at my daycare if they need a diaper change, they always do. They always say no.
Thursday.
Parents of adult children, you know, just turning into adults children. Let me see if this rings true for you, if this seems like a familiar sentiment. This was posted on Reddit just recently. In fact, promoted on Reddit. They took out an ad. I'll just read it verbatim. It says, need a car? Date our son. He's smart but socially very shy. Date him and bring him out of his shell before he leaves for college. In exchange, we'll give you a 2004 Buick Regal. Clean, rust-free, 40K miles. Serious inquiries only at dateourson@gmail.com. I mean, like, it should be like, please date our son at gmail.com kind of thing. Just that email address alone, that is red flags all over the place. But the best part of the ad is that every time you see the word date in the words, it's got the air quotes around it, the quotation marks. Date our son. So you know what they're saying. They're saying, help us out. We don't want a 40-year-old virgin situation on our hands. And oh boy, is this awkward, right? That is just super awkward. Get out of his life. Stop meddling. It'll happen when it's supposed to happen. But I question, at what point does this crest over into actual prostitution, right? At what point do the parents realize that honestly, that would probably just be cheaper? The Cure, they are going to be returning to a North American tour a little bit later on this year. Yeah, they've actually put out a huge, they're calling it a U.S. tour, which is great. Though North America is kind of how they're phrasing it in some of the posts about it. The images actually just say U.S. Tour 23, though. And, yeah, does it pass the test of being a full North American tour, i.e., does it have more stops in Canada than just Vancouver and Toronto? Yes. By one. They're also going to be stopping in Montreal. Well done, The Cure. Well done. You did it. And finally, the B-52s have made a public statement denouncing any bills in the United States or elsewhere that are targeting trans people or drag artists or both, citing specifically these bills not only violate the fundamental human rights of the affected individuals, but also perpetuate a toxic culture of hate and intolerance that has no place in our society. Well said. There's a countdown when it comes to humans and any chance to draw something on something else. And that is the TTP countdown, the time to pee. Basically the amount of time it takes for somebody to draw a big old pee-pee on something. It is very real. Some are easy, right? Juvenile, average. And then every once in a while, someone takes it to another level. Like hikers on the side of an Alaskan mountain this week. For instance, a hike that apparently rises more than 3,000 feet upwards did it in the cover of moonlight. And, yeah, the member that they stomped into existence in the snow on that mountain is massive, girthy even. Well, the Rangers didn't like that very much, Yogi. And apparently somebody ordered a helicopter trip for different people to go to the top of that mountain and stomp this thing back out of existence. But the photos are incredible because they only really managed to make it look more furry is a word I would use. It's amazing and awkward and amazingly awkwardly amazing. It's all of it.
Friday.
I was had, all right? It happens. It happens to the best of us. It's had by viral marketing. Yeah. And it wasn't even yesterday. It was the day before. But yesterday on the show is when I was able finally to talk about this ad on Reddit. It says, need a car, date our son, but in quotation marks, right? Date. Heavily implied. He's smart, but socially very shy. Date him and bring him out of his shell before he leaves for college. In exchange, we'll give you a 2004 Buick Regal. Clean, rust-free, 40,000 miles. Serious inquiries only. dateourson@gmail.com. Yeah, I read this and I went, oh, that's ridiculous. Overbearing. Get out of the kid's life. He'll be fine. And then yesterday, unbeknownst to me, I didn't even realize it was connected. Saw a trailer. New Jennifer Lawrence movie. Oh, interesting. That looks like it might be good. Click into it. What's this called? Oh, it's called No Hard Feelings. And it's the exact plot from the thing that I saw on Reddit. It's just marketing. Well done. Well done, all right? Not on the trailer, actually. It wasn't a very good one. But, the movie actually still does look funny.
Hey, Alexa, play the Steve Reeve podcast.
A friendly reminder. This Sunday, daylight saving is happening. Spring forward, not fall back. Yeah, daylight saving, or as I like to call it, 1 hour losing for no real good reason other than that we're just kind of stuck with it now because it would be too hard to change it. I admit that is a mouthful. It doesn't really roll off the tongue, but still, that's how I feel about it. It's silly, and it's only been a thing that we've been doing for just over 100 years, and not with any real good reason, I guess, but whatever. We do it. You know it's coming. Your phone's going to automatically update the time on itself anyway. This is the time we go from 2 to 3, not when 2 becomes 1. Spice Girls style. But yeah, can't wait. I just love losing that extra hour of sleep because Benjamin Franklin once thought it would be neat. Look it up. That's why it exists. Eric Clapton is going to be performing once again at the Royal Albert Hall. Johnny Depp, Rod Stewart going to be joining him for a tribute concert. In fact, a series of all-star Jeff Beck tribute concerts that are going to be coming in late May in honor of the memory and artistry of Jeff Beck, who died at the beginning of this year. Phil Collins apparently is very immobile due to the injuries that he has sustained to his back and to his body in general. Much more immobile than he used to be is the health update from another Genesis bandmate, who also adds, I think he's enjoying his time at home. That's bassist Mike Rutherford, giving an update on the health and, of course, the question of whether or not there will ever be more live performances. Of course, Genesis had their last show, period, March 2022, and he was in a wheelchair at the time. So still having concessions to make it work. New documentary series called Britpop, The Music That Changed Britain, is coming out in celebration of the genre's 30th anniversary. And it's actually going to be kicking off this very weekend and, available kind of throughout the next several weeks.
Extended interview.
Hello, on the phone with me right now, ahead of visiting our fair town once again, Scarborough's own Stephen Page. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, thanks.
Well, very, very glad to talk to you. Been something I've been wanting to do for a good portion of my life, so it's a really cool day for me today. But you're coming back to the Keanu Theatre stage tomorrow evening. We just gave out some tickets to some Lucky Cruise listeners. I was wondering, how many times have you been to Fort McMurray now? I believe last time was like just before the pandemic kind of really kicked in.
Yeah, we were there in 2019, I think. And then I played at least a couple times with Bare Naked Ladies as well. So I remember playing in the 90s, playing in some kind of like tennis bubble kind of place. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. That? I do remember that. Yeah, it was kind of one of those inflatable structures.
Yes. I would say that was about 95 we played there. So yeah, this is at least my third, if not my fourth time playing in Fort McMurray.
Well, welcome back. I was snooping around, and I saw that tomorrow is the last stop on your tour in Canada for now, down into the States again. Do you notice a difference between Canadian, U.S. audiences, or more like a city-to-city sort of thing?
Well, I think you do. You definitely do get a city-to-city thing, but I think in general, Canadians knew me and Bare Naked Ladies and our music before most Americans. So some Americans who tuned in early, like let's say with the Gordon album, they kind of still treat us like their little secret.
Yeah.
Where Canada, because we were so ubiquitous everywhere, it's a little more like people from all walks of life come to the shows. It's a little less niche, I guess. But at the same time, the nice thing is I think everybody kind of feels like I get people all the time who say things like, well, I saw you back in 1990 at such and such a bar or whatever else. Because there's this kind of sense of like who discovered you first.
Right.
Or then at the same time you have people who are like, my grandparents played your music in their car. And so it's a weird thing being older now and having these three generations of people who come to shows. That's a lot more common in Canada, where it's like you'll see 3 and sometimes 4 generations of people all sitting together in the show.
Yeah, all coming together. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. You put out a new album, Excelsior. I mean, really, it's only been a few months now. How has the release been and the reaction? I imagine that we might maybe hear some selections from that at the show tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll play a couple songs from it. I mean, that's the thing when you have a long career with a lot of different records, and you have to kind of create a set list that shows where you're at and where you're going, and so the audience can share in that and catch up with you. But you also want to play all the songs that they remember from their youth or their childhood or their, first marriage or whatever the other thing might be.
Yeah.
And so we play a range of material. But I would say that the stuff from Excelsior has been great. The fans have really supported me with this record because I made this pretty well by myself in pandemic times, locked down at home. And, my friends Craig and Kevin do get to play on it and stuff, but for the most part, it's mostly me. And I'd never really made a record like that before, so it was daunting and a little bit scary to put it out there, but the response has been really, really, really nice.
There was a little bit of that going on, especially throughout the pandemic, strings of artists tackling creation in a brand new way without, in some cases, safety net, and without the usual backups and sort of things to rely on. So really cool. I mean, art is one of those things that transcends the times that we go through, right? If it's negative, people will still find a way to make that art.
You got to reflect that back at people.
Yeah, absolutely, right. The energy goes back and forth. I spotted on the Stephen Page website, 100th show celebration coming up, the Live from Home 100, March 18th. So this is something people can get into from wherever they're at, right?
That's right. So I've been doing this since April of 2020. I kind of held off on doing the live streams at the beginning of COVID just because everybody else was doing it. And I thought, no one's going to watch mine if they can watch Springsteen or whatever. But eventually I started doing it at the end of April. I do them over Zoom, so not only can the audience see me, but I can see them and they can see each other. And I will have done 100 of these come March 18th. And, they're full-length shows that I do from my studio, and this one will be special. We're actually going to have a little live audience and have some special guests in the studio with me and stuff, and maybe some streamers and balloons. Who knows?
A little quite decoration,
and I think it's really changed the way I perform as well.
I don't doubt that. Yeah, of course. And so, I mean, if people are interested in that as well as tomorrow night, tickets at stephenpage.com. One more question for you, and this is one just for me, totally personal question. But there's a show I love called Community. Are you aware of the Bare Naked Ladies fight from the show Community from NBC?
I am indeed, and so I think it's pretty great. It's pretty great to have Donald Glover on Team BNL, I think, as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and everyone is on Team BNL except for the outlier, the one in the wrong. Thank you so much for indulging me, and thanks for taking the time to chat this morning, Stephen. So happy to have you back in town, back at the Keanu Theatre stage tomorrow night.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Transmission over. Want more Steve? New podcast episodes happen every Friday, or just tune into the Steve Reeve Show. Weekday mornings starting at 5:30 a.m. on 100.5 Cruise FM.